It is now the next morning and I am trying again with the aircon. Now, one of my friends on the forum suggested that I disconnect hose FFA. FFA was connected into this mechanical valve, which you remember, cold extreme happens to, extreme cold happens to activate. So what I can deduce is this hose here, it must be supplying air, and when this is closed it diverts it into FFA. So okay, removing that hose and then plugging it with my finger or whatever. It's got really good suction, really good vacuum, but it doesn't, basically none of the flaps then work no matter what setting. Nothing moves at all. So okay, which kind of gives me an idea. I wonder if, okay, because like here's where the, if we look at this diversion valve, the hose FFA comes up, goes round and into this piece here. That would go off to the cold water valve to shut off, I guess, to shut off the hot, so you only get cold air, which would probably make good sense in an air conditioned car because you don't want any warm air heating things up. And then we've got this piece here, and I wonder where this happens to go, if I'm able to trace this, or if I disconnect it, does that stop the flap from then moving? So I'm going to try removing this piece, blocking it, and seeing if that has an effect on the actuator on the other side of the box. I'll be looking elsewhere in the car. I went into the engine bay and you can see the vacuum reservoir, and you can see where the wires or the hoses come into the car. From there, there's hose F, there's another one there. See how is I think they both come in, don't they? Where's my fingers? Yeah, these are separate ports. Anyway, so I'm having a trace through and everything. I'm thinking, well, I know that this is a mixer box for the recirculation, and then yeah, I come across this, and up there is a hose. So this was not dangling like this. I'd have noticed that before, but it was just being held up by this loom here. So I'm going to give this a reconnection. Right, let's see if we can see what's that. Okay, so this hose, this is the one, and it has split. I've ended up removing quite a lot of the what's back behind here, and we can see it's definitely split. It's also frustratingly held in place by this clamp. Now, I'm trying to get my fingers on it to either try and get some tape on it or seal it in some particular way, is proving fruitless where it is positioned. I don't know whether it's possible to drop this unit even a little bit. Okay, so I managed to fashion this together. That's not going to make much of a good seal, so I'm going to then try and tape that together. Ideally I'd have some sort of sealer or something, but I don't. I do have some gaffer tape though. Gaffer tape kind of solves everything. So let's get that round it, tape that together. Well, I currently have the car on recirc on max, and I don't remember these flapping around before, so that's quite cool. I reckon that hose must be holding vacuum, which is nice. It's good. How to investigate these flaps? Unfortunately, no, I've not had any improvement at all in the functioning of the unit, and there's still rushing air sound, so I just don't know, and it's coming from this side here. Whether or not it's actually the selector unit itself, I don't know. I'm contemplating calling it a day now, actually, with all this. I gave myself a time limit of a second day. I need to fix up and clean the panels that I took off. So bit of a disappointment, really. But on the flip side, on the bright side, at least I do have heating and I do have cooling, albeit fresh air cooling. And then when everything is nicely cleaned up, everything's going to be nicely cleaned up. Since I'm calling it a day, I'm starting to put the car back together again. So I've got that triangular vent back on. This big massive wires that was, I reckon, for the alarm for the central locking to tie into that. That has been tucked away quite nicely. I was always upset that the radio antenna happened to sit in the footwell, so I fed that through quite nicely. And I fed through the trip computer for the dashboard for that. That being the earth for it that I labelled up earlier. So I just need to feed this proximity sensor back through, tidy that up, get that triangular get the hoses on, the triangular vent, and then the rest of the car can start being repaired and then refitted. It's another day and I'm back checking out the air conditioning. And what have I discovered today? Well, I've started to pop the hoses off and seeing, depending on when the system gets a feed. Actually, if you look at the old system, it actually quite nicely tells you. So this isn't the system I've got, this is the old system, but it tells you things like when you are set to max, because the settings are the same, it tells you which lines then open. So I took line A off because A only works with air conditioning, put it back on, and lo and behold, norm now opens with full cold, which is pleasant, which is good. Max also opens up E, which I can't actually get off, but what E does is it goes over to this unit here. Now what I've also discovered is, yes, I've got these little sort of polythene flaps, but this whole thing should move. There's an actuator up there. I had my camera up there the other day just to look, and lo and behold, there was indeed a pink thing up there. I thought the flap was underneath and I couldn't find it, so it's this that moves. So I reckon this might actually be seized. So I'm going to unscrew everything. There are screws all over the place on this. They're behind the pad. But I've got to say, it was really pleasing getting that open to double space. It also means that my fix that I did in an earlier video on this actually works. So I feel like I'm actually getting somewhere every single day. Yesterday I didn't go near the aircon at all. I started cleaning the car parts. That'll be in another video. But I feel like I'm inching ever closer to getting this resolved. The other thing as well is I discovered that looking at some of these labels, you can see that ADAC must have been replaced. Someone has indeed worked on this in the past. I'm also thinking as well, given that was broken and this was disconnected, whether or not there's been some rewiring here, which is what is making everything work on cold only. It's boggling, the fact that it's only on extreme cold when that valve is closed. That valve is closed, that where is it? That there. that the system actually moves. I can't fathom it. F, I now know is the, which is coming on this side, is the vacuum in. It's clearly going into the system. In one of these. Anyway, I'm going to investigate this box. 18 screws later, and I freed the unit. And this vacuum actuator is only held on by the vacuum hose itself. You can see there's a big ass radial fan, and up there, oh, I don't know if you can see that. Somewhere up there anyway is the vacuum hose. So next test is I am going to get the engine back on, and I'm going to see if there's any vacuum going to there. See if that fix that I did actually did anything. I can't get CE off the diverter, so I'm going to see if it's actually getting air up there, and then I'm going to see what the state of play this is. This is really gnarly though. I mean, it's quite dirty and dusty and relatively horrible, so at least I might give the inside of this a good clean anyway. Here we go. I'm getting ever closer now to fixing this system. This is really quite exciting. So, two things, one of which is I've dismantled the box. I have freed this actuator which was stuck. I know that it happens to work. This is the hose EA that I ended up making a makeshift steel with. It's not perfect, but if I move this into the max setting, which engages hose EA, and push into cold, obviously because it's not getting vacuum. You can hear it do a bit of vacuum whirring. Come on. There we go. I've sealed that. Shazam! It opens. And in doing that, with that being a sealed system, A is opening, so that is nice and cold. I mean, this is really good. This is really good. Okay, so that's good. Additionally, I've then also discovered, let's turn all that off. And then also discovered is this divert valve. If I take it away from hot, it's getting really strong vacuum. It's leaking vacuum basically when it's off. And in doing so, what I can then do is then get it to move. Let's get it on. What's that going to be? Defrost, heat, vent. So nothing coming through there. Let's put the blur on. But if I then seal this with my finger, there it is, I seal this. Okay, so I'm going to need multiple hands for this that I can't do with holding the phone. But basically, I've got to get E sealed, which is intermittent. I've got to get my finger on there, sealing it, and then I've got really hot air coming through. And it's a hot day, and I'm now sweltering. Anyway, so, kill the, geez, gosh, that is so hot. Oh, right, so, what am I going to do? So, that I'm going to have to get a really good seal on, and then I'm going to get all that cleaned up. This vacuum seal, I bought some general purpose grease, this diversion valve. I've got some general purpose grease. I'm going to see if I can get that to get a nice tight seal on it. And then would you believe I will have fully functional heating, cooling. I can get the aircon serviced and gassed, and then I'm going to have air conditioning, and that is one big, huge, humongous win for this car. Additionally, the rest of the all this sort of stuff, when the trim goes back on, it's all cleaned up, should be bright and shiny and sparkly when it goes on. Right, I'm going to get out this sun. Very dirty. Yeah. Okay, so this is cleaned up quite nicely. This has all been greased with WD-40. Clean. I'm going to let it dry in the sun. And then this is the divert valve, which I've already given a squirt of WD-40. You can see that there's dirt inside still. In fact, the more that I've been cleaning out the end, the more dirt you can see just basically coming out of it. But I'm going to end up, well, using the hose. I should be able to test for seals, especially when this is pushed, see how it diverts, see if there's any air escaping from the top, because that leak will end up resulting in no air going to the system, which is why it doesn't work when it is set to anything except for extreme cold. So hopefully I'll be able to get some grease in there, get that sealed, and then back on the car, and everything should then work. The method I'm using here, I went to the local motor factors, got some vacuum hose. It's ever so slightly oversized, but for the purpose of this it's fine. What I've done is I've put that in there and I've blown into it, and when I then depress this, residue from inside shoots out. I mean, we've got that there that came out. You can kind of see why windscreen leaks in these cars is actually quite so bad for them. You think about all this componentry that is actually sitting underneath the dashboard, and when the windscreen leaks, the water dribbles down the dashboard and ends up in something, and you've got quite a lot going on. I mean, I do know that my windscreen was leaking at some point, and I wonder if this might just be condensation that's built up in the system over time, or when it was turned off. But yeah, a little bit of a rusty box in here. I've been spraying it or rubbing it with some WD-40, partly because it'll get rid of the final bits of dirt here, partly also because it should start to just shine things up a little bit and maybe give it a little bit of protection. I need to get hose AE back behind the box and through the little hole to get to the actuator. I'm going to have to take the relays off. Hopefully I won't have to detach the relays. I'm just going to try and disconnect them and see if I can just move them out of the way. Might need to move this hose out of the way as well for the face vent. So I've disconnected or rather I've unbolted the relays. That's given me some space. I've disconnected this hose from the heater box itself, moved it out of the way, so I should be able to gain access. I think this is probably going to be easier if you were to feed the hose from the inside and feed it through, but I don't have that option if I want to keep using the original hoses. But I do have some new hoses on standby just in case I need to. Actually, I wonder if the hose has been cut in the past, because there's no way it's going to go through that one as well. It'll probably come down through into there and then up around the unit, which probably means that this has had a fix before, but hey. Right, so the hose is through. I can get the I think I'll get the relays back on, get the bottom of the box together, and then I can test the system. Naturally, before I put it all back together again, I'd want to then check the action of this vacuum actuator. I disconnected it now, but naturally it didn't work, did it? So I reckon the fix that I did on the on joining the two hoses, it just isn't holding basically. Fortunately, I've got some new hose coming. Okay, so I've unpicked the hose. I've rigged up a big chunkier hose to it. What I need to do I suppose I can rest this, can I? Oh, there we go. There we are, feeding it air. So look, like Portee does work. All I've got to do is get a good connection to the actuator. Got a new hose coming, and then I can fit it, and then I can put that back together again. I got yet some more new hose. This is a little bit thinner than the hose that I bought from the Motor Factors. It's not quite as thin as the hose that was originally on the car, but it will still fit through the aperture and it still makes good seals. Getting it through at the top of the box up here is a rubber grommet or seal, and trying to get the hose through it is actually quite difficult. You've got rubber rubbing on rubber. Good trick is to use some washing up liquid, which you smear on the hose, and that helps it then slide through the aperture without any issue at all. Like that. Marvellous. Right, so I don't know how much I'm going to need of that, so I'm going to leave that there, thread it round, get it connected up, get it locked in place, and I can give it a good test. Today should be a joyous day, for I have received in the post a new vacuum switch. You can see here's the old one. The copper top is a bit dark. We've got some crustiness inside, and it only seals a vacuum when you push the switch in, or vacuum comes in on this side, or vacuum is sucking on that side and it's diverted to there, closing off the cold, which I know works. The valve closes quite nicely. So that only works when it is in this down position. This doesn't do anything, doesn't work at all, which is actually really upsetting. I mean, it is a 40-year-old part, I suppose. Yeah, it looks nice and clean. Just doesn't seal at all. Doesn't, if it's down, up, whatever, it doesn't seal at all, which is a bit upsetting, really. One might draw the conclusion that any 40-year-old part might end up being exactly like this. I think I might keep it though. I think I might try and seal it in some way, look for some sealant. Although even with it down, it's not sealing. I might get some grease in there, and because it's not got a smooth action like that. That feels like it's got some sort of spring against it. That does have a spring, but it's a bit, like I say, feeling a bit crusty. I mean, there's another supplier I could try, or I think what I'm going to do though is look for a generic off-the-shelf part. I might fiddle around with this though, see what I might be able to do. But that's a bit sad. Okay, so I can get the video up on YouTube. I'm going to call it a day at this particular point. This is the part that was on the car originally. You can see, like I say, it's a bit dirty inside and so on, but the bottom of it does seal. So with the button depressed, vacuum is transferred from this to this, and thus the whole system seals and yada yada yada. Putting this part in water, what I'm able to see is that it leaks around the pin, the plunger pin in the middle, and a little bit around the side. Looking at the part that came, now the bottom of it, I've put it in some PVA glue for the time being, I'll explain why. The bottom of it leaked vacuum, as did the top, but it's a 40-year-old part, never been used on a car, so it's never been pushed in 40 odd years. It's not surprising. However, submersing it in water like I did the other, what I actually found was, yes, the bottom of it wasn't holding it, it was leaking some vacuum when I was pushing some air through it, but round the top It's not around the plunger part. It was just looking on this one here. It was just around the edges. It was leaking some air. So I thought maybe I could try and seal this. I proved the point by using a bit of Vaseline on it. There's some Vaseline there with a bit of tape stuck to it. Yeah, so to prove the point, put some Vaseline on it and then was pushing the plunger, and I could see that it was leaking air around the top. I had stuck some PVA glue down it, so this has previously been up the other way to let the PVA glue drain down to the bottom of the plunger. Gone past whatever cracks in the rubber seals must have been the case, and then testing on the car, lo and behold, it seals just as well as this one does when the plunger is depressed. So I'm kind of hopeful that maybe, just maybe, this is sort of 50-50 PVA glue. It's been going off for a day or so. Maybe, just maybe, that's going to actually get in, seal the cracks, seal the vacuum, and there we go. If not, my next video, I've got some parts coming off eBay. Pneumatic parts, not particularly. Looking at it now, it was a couple of quid, but I don't think it's the right parts. I've got some inquiries with automotive company. Not an automotive, what am I talking about? A pneumatic company. They make micro plungers and switches and all sorts of things. Maybe they'll find something. I've got some inquiries with companies in America for these parts here. Would you believe 60s and 70s Fords and General Motors that use the Delco air conditioning system have the same, fundamentally the same part, and there's a company in America that are remanufacturing them, but I can't buy them online through online shops. Either they're not going to ship to America, or it comes with a health warning as well, where there being potentially carcinogenic parts inside, so maybe that's preventing it being exported. But I've got some inquiries in place with some companies, and we'll see if I can get that. But yeah, lo and behold, amazingly, finding all the same switch settings and parts and so on. And in doing my research as well, those pink actuators that I've been working on and I glued, they're made by a company called Bear, German company, and they're very prevalent on Mercedes, 70s Mercedes. So you should be able to find replacement parts should I ever need those there as well. So I'm going to wrap this video up for now. Hopefully my next video is going to contain a fixed car and putting everything back together again. My time off is coming to an end as well, so at some point I'm going to have to put all of that back into the car as well. So at least I know that kind of works, so that could go back in the car. But hopefully by the end of the week I might find something that is going to solve the problem. Anyways, that's enough for now. I'll see you in my next video.